Blog Talk Radio. Where not just women are in danger, but all marginalized people. Where being uniquely different right now might truly be considered a crime. It seems as though we had all slipped into a false sense of comfort, that justice would prevail and that good would win in the end. Well, good did not win this election, but good will win in the end. So what today means is that we are far from the end. Today marks the beginning of our story. The revolution starts here. The fight for the right to be free, to be who we are, to be equal. Let's march together through this darkness, and with each step, know that we are not afraid. That we are not alone. That we will not back down. That there is power in our unity, and that no opposing force stands a chance in the face of true solidarity. And to our detractors that insist that this march will never add up to anything,
Boston Red here with Friday Java, a weekly magazine of political theory, polling, and commentary. It is part of the history called people that make up this fascinating journey. We are part of the Obama network. For that, we make no apologies. What we pledge to do is give you the facts, unabridged, the history, what body politics is, the most up-to-date theories of political science and psychology. Stay tuned for this incredible ride. Boston Red, peace out. From WBRN Radio in Boston and on the Boston Red Network. This is Friday Java on the 4th of August 2017. We have a story coming out of West Virginia. We'll start this with a press release from Governor Jim Justice on the 2nd of August about the status of education in West Virginia. As the reports came, the New York Times verified it, that Governor Jim Justice had switched from the Democratic Party back to the Republican Party. He'd also been an independent. We'll get to that story in a minute from the Charlotte Gazette, and we'll also talk about the Miami Dolphins and none other than Colin Kaepernick and the NBA boycott that is coming up by many progressives and African American people on the NFL because of the treatment of Colin Kaepernick and his not being employed when people that are definitely mediocre are being employed. One of the big stops we'll also have from the people at the Crystal Ball, that's Larry Sabato's shop, Dr. Alan Amowitz. He is from the Emory University, a professor there, and he'll be talking about his midterm model for gubernatorial contest. We'll get to that. But first, this press release out of Charlotte, West Virginia. We are appreciative of Governor Justice and his press releases. Jim was right. The new study shows West Virginia schools rank terribly. Now, evidently, he had proposed a 2% raise for teachers in West Virginia, and more cuts to West Virginia colleges and universities. That's what the legislature delivered. The analysis confirms what the people already know. West Virginia needs a playbook because all we do is keep pitching 50th, said Governor Justice. We will always be dead last if we don't make changes. That is why I fought so hard for teachers' pay raise, so that they could fill the 700 teaching vacancies, positions in the state, but the legislature killed the plan. I also did everything in my power to stop cuts to higher education, but the legislature made the cuts that were totally unnecessary. It doesn't invest. If we don't invest in education, we'll continue to be dead last. And no matter what they say about coal as being king in West Virginia, if the state of West Virginia does not invest in higher education, no matter how much coal they dig or don't dig, will not make an appreciable difference. We are too booming good to accept this. Our teachers are good people and they work hard, but we are losing them to other states due to low pay. If all the legislature wanted to do is turn their backs on students and teachers, then West Virginia will stay stuck in the bottom. It's simple. If we don't give our schools tools to compete, then we'll never improve, no doubt about that. The Governor Justice charged the people of West Virginia to ask their delegates and senators if they don't invest in our schools and pay our teachers better, why they don't. That is a very good question. To this study very quickly here, this is Wallet Hub's study. Securing a child's success begins with choosing the right school. But how can parents decide where to best enroll their kids? Because kids develop and learn at different rates. Answers here to that. Unfortunately, most parents don't have the luxury of placing their children in exclusive private or preparatory schools with greater individual interpretation, like Trump's little Trump is in one of those types of schools. And let me see what else is here. The main findings, some of the rankings here. The Commonwealth is number 1 with a 78.16 score. Next is New Jersey, 66.92. Then New Hampshire, 65. Then let's see, Wisconsin, Vermont, Virginia. I'm surprised Virginia's at 63.77. And the quality ranking, of course, is number 1 for the Commonwealth, number 2 for Jersey, number 4 for New Hampshire, and number 6 for Wisconsin. They're number 4 in the ranking here. Virginia is number 6. Minnesota is number 7. All of these are in the 60 to the 63s. And then Connecticut, then Iowa, Illinois is at 58. They're number 11. And Delaware, North Carolina, we go down, down, down. Pennsylvania is number 16. Utah is number 17 at 55.95. Oklahoma at 18. And in North Dakota at 20. Florida at 21, very popular state. Indiana at 22. 23 is Ohio. Washington State, I'm surprised Washington State's that low, but nonetheless it's 24. In Rhode Island, not surprised there. 52, New York, 26, Kentucky, 27, and California, 28. California used to be near the top of education all across the U.S. And Montana, 29, Missouri, 31, not surprising there. Texas, 34, very large state there. Georgia, 38, and Hawaii, 39. I'm not certain why that is, but anyway, nonetheless, Nevada, 40, Arizona, 41, Tennessee, 42, Alabama, 44, Arkansas, these are always at the bottom, Alaska, 45, Arkansas, 46, Mississippi, 47, the District of Columbia, 48, and West Virginia at 49. 50 is New Mexico, and last 51 in this roundup is the state of Louisiana. So on we go back to Charleston, West Virginia, and the Charleston Gazette Mail there is a Pulitzer Prize-winning paper. They remind us of that. DJ Trump was in Huntington, West Virginia, and that's where the announcement was made. The stage midway through the speech there, Governor Justice spoke about the difficulty in the legislative session. Today, I tell you, with a lot of prayer, a lot of thinking, I can't help you anymore being a Democratic governor. So tomorrow I'll change my registration. New York Times first reported this. Oops. He's in the coal and real estate business. Ran for governor last year. Of course, the Democrat is Jim Justice, 6'7" inches tall. Runs a Greenbrier Resort, a very good resort. We stayed there once. Nonetheless, he won a three-way race in Democratic primary, defeating Goodwin, who was the former U.S. attorney, then the minority leader Gessler. Then he defeated the Republican named Bill Cole. Before he ran as a Democrat, Justice had been a Republican, an independent. He's been everything you could name there. Still many West Virginia Democrats embrace his run, Joe Meacham being one. There are three extremely capable candidates in the Democratic race for governor, but I believe Jim Justice is uniquely qualified to handle the major challenges that West Virginia is facing. That was from Jim Meacham, former governor himself. He issued this statement that Senator Meacham now, I have always been proud of West Virginia Democrats. I am disappointed by Governor Justice's decision to switch parties. He said, while I do not agree with his decision, I have always said that I will work with anyone, no matter their political affiliation, to do what is best for the people of West Virginia. For decades, West Virginia was one of the most reliable Democratic states. In fact, John F. Kennedy was in the West Virginia primary, and he won the West Virginia primary. So that tells you where West Virginia has went. But evidently, at the same time, since 2000, they have been voting a Republican in West Virginia, and still is poverty-stricken and as backward as they've always been. 4 of the 5 seats in Congress have flipped to Democrats there. I think there's only one statewide office in West Virginia. The Secretary of State is held by a Democrat. The Chief of Staff, that was Nick Casey. He didn't know anything about it. His campaign manager was Larry Puccio, who ran his campaign. Casey said he didn't know anything about the party switch, and I don't know if he'll still be the Chief of Staff come Monday or not. Then he began to hear the rumblings, and I guess that's what it was, from the state Democratic Party. Belinda, Bafora, said that Justice took advantage of the Democrats. Jim Justice said he became a Democrat because Democrats cared about people. I think we can all guess who he cares about by his decision today. It's not the people of West Virginia. Bafora said in a statement during the campaign for governor, Jim Justice said he would never lie to the public. He said he would never be a politician. He would definitely be a full-time governor. None of these promises were kept. Jim Justice took advantage of Democrats by taking our money and our votes. It's a slap in the face to all of us who believe what he was promising. I never thought I'd see Jim Justice being anybody's puppet. Shame on him. And from Everett Jenkins, who switched, Democrat to Republican, another opportunism. You can just call this opportunism. That's basically what it is. The West, we won't spend any time on those characters. Shirley Moore Capito, who didn't have the intestinal fortitude to vote against the Republican plan. She was on Air Force One, anything for a free ride, I suppose. Republican Party represents the future of West Virginia. The press release I read to you from the 2nd of August, Governor Justice was talking about the future of West Virginia and how the teachers are leaving and how vacancies are there that will never be filled in West Virginia. So we can kind of forget about that. And let's see, we're just rounding this up. An hour before the Times report was published, the West Virginia Republican Party criticized Justice on Twitter, referring to the Gazette-Mail story that noted a company caught in a kickback scheme was still getting state contracts. Low energy at governor's refusal to stop millions of dollars in contracts to companies who cheated West Virginia taxpayers. Sad. That was on Twitter. Lucas, that's the Republican chair, previous fights with Justice, past differences with our party and our party platform came while he was a Democrat. Well, he's still Big Jim Justice. He hasn't changed that. He may have changed some other things. But basically the governorships, we'll talk about that in a minute, as sort of a segue out here, period. Justice worked closely with Senate leaders on the revenue plan that would cut state income tax rates. It would, with the cuts offset temporarily with an increase in the state sales tax. However, the House rejected that proposal on various occasions. State Democrats also walked away from the GOP plan, Justice said there. Anyway, that is the end of the story there. And in Huntington, DJ Trump doubled down on what he called his Russian troubles. A grand jury there by Mueller as the special prosecutor is moving forward. That grand jury is rumored to be seated in Washington, D.C. So in other words, things are coming. The only reason the Democrats talk about totally messed up Russian stories is because they have no message, no agenda, no vision. Well, that would be the same situation there. Republicans haven't been able to pass their vision so far. If you want to call it a vision, I can't help you any. Sorry about that. That's just a rehash of what he said. Trump emulated more rhetoric discipline than he did when he did a special story on the Boy Scout Jamboree called the Scoutmaster. To tune into it. That was done this week also. Bringing up Clinton and recycling the campaign attack, Trump had to pause to chance of lock her up. In other words, same old scheme that he ran during the campaign. And he's speaking to his base set. Does that do him any good in terms of his polling? I would say absolutely not. We'll get to that in a minute. Crowd chanted of drain the swamp. Well, he's been filling up the swamp. So that's kind of the story there. And we went over the education opportunities. And let's go now to the University of Virginia, and then we'll go to Colin Kopanek as we get into our education part here. Into our sports part. This is a forecast model suggests Democrats gains are likely. Obviously, any model is not certain until it happens. This is on the 3rd of August. Professor Alan Abowitz, he's the senior columnist, they call him. I would call him, an analyst. In addition to the entire U.S. House of Representatives, that's the 3,000, I'll get it right in a minute, 435, one-third of the Senate. Americans will be choosing 36 governorships in 2018. Control of State House is critical not only because many important policy decisions are made at the state, but because the governors elected next year will, in many cases, play key roles in congressional redrawing congressional and state legislative districts in 2020. A forecast model that has produced accurate predictions of the results of of the midterm U.S. House elections can also be used to predict the results of gubernatorial contests in midterm election years with high degrees of accuracy. The model is based upon something called a generic ballot. We talked about that before. This is a question included in numerous national polls, and we reported those. We sort of discount those, but here he talks about the September model. The president's party typically loses gubernatorial seats in the midterm. This can be true, has been true of 14 of 18 midterm elections since World War II. One of the problems here, and this is why it is, midterm elections are notorious for lower turnouts. Presidential election years, you have higher turnouts, and some of the same forces that have been around since World War II are there. So the president's party gained 8 seats in 1986 to lose 11 in 1970. So this explains the variability in midterm results, and can we expect in 2018. And then he goes into the model. We won't go into it. What has happened is the source, the table, which you can't see, but he ran a regression here on it, and the coefficient of is a negative 2.75 here, and finally the coefficient of 0.23 on the generic ballot variable means that for every additional 4-point advantage Democrats enjoy on the generic ballot in early September, that's what they're talking in early September of the midterm year, that would be September of 2018, Republicans can expect to lose 1 additional gubernatorial seat. And then they have effectively a scatter graph here. The result is similar to that of the House forecast model. And then again, the source. So if the Republican generic ballot is plus 4, predicted seat change of a negative 6. So it depends on where that ballot is. If it is a negative 4, then it's a negative 8 seat change there in their generic ballot. The prediction table 2 shows that under almost any reasonable scenario, Democrats are likely to gain governorships next year. This is due to 2 facts. There's a GOP president who is going down in the polls. We'll get to that in just a minute. There's popularity in the states. Republicans will be defending 26 of 36 seats there, and that in itself is a large number of seats to have to defend. We're a long ways from it, no doubt about that. And for us, we have Core 25 for DJ Trump. That has a lot of negative results. He's not there, not the Core 25. He's been in the low 30s. He's dipped down with a Quantipac poll where we talked about that. Democrats currently have a lead of about 8 points in the generic ballot. Of magnitude early in 2016 would predicted a net gain of around 9 governorships, with 2/3 probability that the gains would be between 6 and 12. 2018, I'm sorry, they said 2016. So that is where they would be if that were to be the case. But let's look at where DJ Trump stands in these states. We single them out as opposed, as opposed to looking at his national numbers. In some of these states, he's actually in better shape than he would be nationally. Now, this is how Obamacare repeal complicates some of the Senate races. We'll just go to numbers here. Trump's approval rates, job approval rates by 2018 Senate seats. Now, this is first look at states where Trump's approval rate is below the national average and where Senate contests will take place next year. Now, we'll look at these. The Commonwealth of Virginia, his approval rate is at 39. His disapproval is at 56. In Delaware, 38 is his approval rating. In Minnesota, 39. 57 disapprove of him. In Rhode Island, it's 37. 55 there. In Hawaii, 35. In New Mexico, 37. This is his approval rates. In Jersey, 36. Two-Ton Christie is not running again there. Out in Washington State, 36. 34 in Connecticut, 31 in New York, 30 in California, and 30 in Maryland. In the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, it is 29 and 66 disapprove of him. In Vermont, 26%, the home of Senator Bernie Sanders. He's a junior senator there. Now, these are states where his approval rating is below water but is more popular than in the country as a whole. Indiana, he's still at 47 in Indiana, which is not great, but President Obama ran for re-election there and was re-elected, about the same numbers. He's 47 and 48 disapproval there. Ohio, the same, 47. Nevada, 44. Florida, 42. Pennsylvania, 43. Wisconsin, 43. And Arizona, 43 also. 42 in Texas, a little surprising there, but not unusual. And in Michigan at 42 also. Be interesting to see where he goes and where our core number would be in those states. So that's sort of a thing there. And let's look at the numbers today. Gallup has him at 36. They have been they're in the business of daily polling this for a very, very long time. Rasmussen, who is an outliner here, at 39% there, and 60% disapprove, very, very high. So it's only, really, when you look at the polls, disapproval is plus 21 for Rasmussen's most favorable one, and plus 22. This is on disapproval there. So it's kind of where he is. And at the end, we looked at Quantipac, they had him at only 33. And we went over that poll last night. YouGov at 39. Reuters, let's see, at 37. These congressional approval ratings, I don't even give them because it doesn't matter much. It can be 10. They virtually 90% of the people are reelected anyway. So we just don't really spend a lot of time with them. On to Colin Kaepernick and the sports. We'll start at the Washington Post and the difference between the NFL and NBA. Why he's not been employed. Players have spoke up. The media has spoke up. It takes the ownership for someone to say we want this guy in our locker rooms. That's what Michael Bennett told reporters in Seattle. The NBA has accepted characters of all of all stripes, but Brian Kaepernick took a knee during the national anthem last year, a personal form of protest against the police brutality of African Americans and other oppressed minorities. His action was met with equally parts of enthusiasm and outrage across the country. Well, part of that is that the NFL used to be more of a working class sport. Some of those people, a lot of them, are backers of DJ Trump, and that is there. And also the owners are very, very right wing in the NFL. I think of Johnson in New York, a crony of BJ Trump's. But like in Dallas, Mark Cuban was saying, I don't know what the status is in the NFL, but I'm glad the NBA doesn't have a political litmus test. They can't afford to have one with almost 70% of the players African Americans. Far beyond the shape of the ball and the size of the players, there's a cultural divide that distinguishes professional football and basketball in the U.S., set in contrast to the NBA and NFL have long struggled at times with how to treat players who court controversy. In the NBA, everyone from players to coaches, owners, league executives show willingness to tackle hot button issues. That's from Jeff Van Gundy. If you remember him, he used to be with he's with ESPN now, but he used to be with the Knickerbockers. He's a former coach, and of course, the Commissioner Silver embraces all kinds of different thinking. That is healthy. We embrace different thoughts. You can agree with Mr. Kopanek, or you disagree with Mr. Kopanek, but what I don't think you should believe is that he doesn't have the right or should be muzzled. And of course, the attitude is don't hire him. There are 32 teams who are trying to pick people. He's 29 years old. He is a free agent. His completion rating is 59.2 for good rating there. And he, of course, had been injured. Now, he was in the 49ers. They only won 2 games. But in 16, it was a bad year for the 49ers. But he had some good teams. And the Dolphins are one that is looking at him. He beat the Dolphins, one of his better games. And they also, here, the Ravens of Baltimore, they had some character, was a backup in college who threw 3 passes and spent last season in the champion indoor, I think we used to call it arena football league. He also dabbled in real estate, and that was their quarterback, not a very good one. So there you got Jim Harbaugh and Ozzie Newsome. Ozzie Newsome used to play for Dallas. Remember him a very long time ago. Were open to signing Kopanek, but the owner, I think it's Bastili. Steve Bastili was not. And this is one of the problems there. Ray Lewis, who often speaks on things, imported Kopanek to let your play speak for itself, and what you do off field don't let too many people know. Oh well, they already know. So this is basically the difference there. If you remember the situation with Trevon Martin and the Miami Heat wearing hoodies, and a lifetime ban he issued to one Donald Sterling of the Clippers for his racist remarks. So it is a different situation. Greg Popovich, he is at San Antonio. Steve Van Gundy, Steve Kerr have talked politics. Big stars such as James and Stephen Curry, Carmelo, etc., Derek Ross have used that platform to discuss gun violence and social activism. So this just brings us into our sports coverage. And from ESPN, there's a little different slant on this. Let me get to them. Here, if Ryan Tannehill is lost, the Dolphins have Colin Kaepernick Condragian. Anyway, this is by Mike Sandu. I'm sorry. This is back to the Ravens and their situation there. Tannehill has had a scare Tuesday after he fell in practice, and the team now fears he will need season-ending surgery. So that's another situation there with the Ravens. Colin Kaepernick could be a good fit for them, whose coaching staff has always shown the flexibility required to build around a quarterback with a non-conventional skill set. However, the support for Kaepernick has shown from Fidel Castro could be a deal breaker in Miami. where the large population of exiles are, but they don't watch a lot of football. This is with the Dolphins. Kopanek played his best game in 2016 against the Dolphins. He was 29 for 46 passes for 296 yards, 3 touchdowns. He ran home, in other words. So there we go. Kopanek's decision is obviously about more than football. In addition to kneeling for the national anthem in protest of racial inequality, Kopanek shows up to the 49ers news conference last summer wearing a T-shirt depicting Castro and Malcolm X with a caption, "Like minds think alike." Well, that's okay. It doesn't matter right there. Columnist there, Amadeo Sergio, called Kopanek an unrepentant hypocrite in a column detailing his own escape from Cuba. Many of us in there feel similarly. Well, he's an older columnist there. The Marlins, when then the Marlins manager Ozzie Guillen expressed admiration for Castro in 2012. Protest groups organized and a team suspended Ozzie for 5 games. Ozzie Guillen had won a World Series. He apologized. He shouldn't have to do that. But the Orwellian option, the Oberhauser option, was so ineffective in Houston last season that Texas traded their second-round draft pick to Cleveland in exchange for the Browns taking his $16 million salary. The Browns immediately tried to unload Ossenweller, only to discover teams weren't interested in him, even if Cleveland agreed to eat some of the money. So this person was a more promising prospect previously in Denver, where the current Dolphins coach was once the offensive lineman. That's Adam Griesa. Anyway, the Browns and Dolphins would have to figure out how to handle the $16 million salary that followed Orson Welles from Houston to Cleveland, and perhaps the Browns would have to agree to pay a portion of that money in exchange. So that is one. The Dolphins last season, they could win in short term with Matt Moore in the lineup. Moore might have been the most made the most sense for them in the short term if the season injury befell Tannehill. But in 16 what is it? Brendan Doherty and college free agent and other attorneys, the Dolphins presumably wanted another option in that circumstance. So this is where Robert Griffith, remember him, used to be, is on sign, but is one of the league scene excited about him. New England has resisted trading. Well, anyway, I won't go into all this stuff right here, but Robert Griffith is on sign. He was at the Washington team and was injured there due to the callousness there. Now, there is one other potential veteran. Oh boy, Jay Cutler. He used to be with the Bears. He was pathetic there. And Cutler in Chicago, so there's at least some familiarity. Well, I suppose. Anyway, let's do the baseball scores. Enough of the flummery. The Cardinals were in Milwaukee, Brewers 2-1. The D-backs were in Wrigley Field. And it was an earlier game today. I missed it anyway. 10-8 to score. D-backs pulled that one out. 13 hits, no errors, and the Cubbies had 11 hits and 1 error. The loser was Davis, so I guess maybe he lost it in the ninth. Anyway, the Mets and Rockies. Rockies in Denver, 5-4 over the Mets. The Tigers and Orioles 7-5. The Reds and Pirates 6,
6-0. Shut them out. The Red Sox and White Sox in Boston, 9-5. Red Sox. The Yankees and Cleveland 5-1. That was in Cleveland. The Dodgers and Atlanta. Dodgers pulled that one out 7-4. Mr. Wood was a winner there. The Rangers and Twins in Minnesota. Rangers 4-1. The Rays and Astros in Houston. The Rays pull that game out 5-3. Astros lost quite a few games lately. The Mariners and Royals in Kansas City. Royals 6-4. The Phillies and Angels in California. Angels 5-4. And finally, a game that I tuned into. Oh boy. The Athletics and Giants. Giants 11-2 there. So that will do it for us. Have a good weekend, everyone. We'll see you on the week that was on Saturday morning. We'll also have Numbers Man. We had an open source report on virtual private networks and privacy, and you can find it on Spreaker and on our, I believe it was the Scoutmaster? I think so. Anyway, there's a link there to it also, our open source report there. So that is where we do open source reports these days.